Morning, Kirsten.
Thank you so much for making yourself available for this very important daily briefing that we're going to have between now and September 25th. Revote 2017 is very privileged to have such an accomplished attorney as yourself, and I'm very impressed at the way you're able to read, reflect, and respond so quickly to the latest breaking news. And so today we're focusing on Steve Bannon and his disinformation campaign. And I have on the screen here your latest blog post. Can you give us a little insight into what you wrote this morning?
Certainly. The last couple of days, Steve Bannon has been talking about, and the main point that was raised was that he believes that Republican congressional leadership is seeking to nullify the results of the election from November. The first time that I've heard nullification spoken by anybody from the Republican Party has been the last couple of days. Otherwise, primarily, people involved in this case have discussed nullification. And the petitioners and Bailey and others versus the United States and others are seeking to have the election declared void ab initio, as though it had never occurred. But this is something that's typical for Steve Bannon, and that is to lie. And so he's diverting people's attention, distracting them from the actual question of nullification by making it seem as though the Republicans are trying to nullify the election. And really what happened in this election was Russians interfered in the election. President Trump, Vice President Pence, Speaker of the House Ryan, all have acknowledged that the Russians interfered in the election. They dispute that that had any effect on the election's outcome. But what we seek in this case is we want to have a special master appointed by the Supreme Court, and we want to see an investigation of allegations that the Russians hacked and affected the outcome of the election.
All right, so the question is, it seems to be a lot of background noise. I apologize for that. The question is, there was discussion yesterday also in some articles I saw kind of related to this whole nullification thing about Steve Bannon and Paul Manafort last year in the summer bragging about the swing states that they said Trump was going to win, implying that he would be working so hard on his campaign, that he would win those. And so although a few days before the election, all the swing states were heavily favoring Hillary Clinton, and the exit polls also showed that she had won those states, Trump won the swing states. So what does that have to do with your case? Do you have any arguments in your case about the swing states in particular?
Yes, in fact, we have petitioners from those swing states to establish standing to object or challenge the results of the election. And really, the interference with American elections goes back years. The head of the Diebold Company, which is one of the voting machine companies, bragged in 2006, I think it was, that he was going to deliver Ohio to the Republican Party. Karl Rove in 2012 was shocked when he was on air, and he was informed that President Obama had carried Ohio. He got up on the set and walked to the back room to check the numbers coming out because he didn't believe that. When Kenya's presidential election, it was held at the beginning of August, was declared void by its Supreme Court, Kenya's Chief Justice said an election is a process, not an event. And Russian interference and other means of interfering with our election and stealing it have been ongoing for several years. So for them to have made the claims last summer that they were going to take the swing states shows a couple of things. One, their arrogance. Two, that shows their mens rea, which is a criminal intent. And three, it also shows these plans have been in hatching for a long time. And people have to realize that our election machine system is really pretty primitive relative to voting machines, and it was easy to hack them. We don't have a paper record left from many of the machines. And so I'm going to dispute what you said just a minute ago, because I know what you meant. You said Trump won those swing states. He didn't really win those swing states. They were able to maneuver votes in those states so that he won the electoral votes from those states. But we dispute that he won the election at all, and the election was stolen.
Thank you. And Mark, we also have a question regarding, you just made quite a kind of a almost dangerous allegation or insinuation when you talked about President Obama and previous elections. So, I found it odd too that Steve Bannon's talking about the GOP wanting to nullify the election. But the question is, why aren't the Democrats calling for nullification if in fact this election was tampered with, tainted, invaded by a foreign power? So what's the deal? Why hasn't the previous administration stood up? Why aren't Democratic leaders, carrying your water and supporting this case?
Well, in one sense, the Democratic Party, there are not just two groups of people in this country, Republicans and Democrats. And if people are progressive in this country and they believe in values and ideals, the Democratic Party is not the voice for us, just as true conservatives don't have the Republican Party as their voice. So just because the Democratic Party hasn't challenged this means nothing. The party leadership of both parties are vested in the system as it is right now, and it is a very serious thing to challenge the outcome of an election in a system that's functioned in this way. It had votes and everything that have never been challenged for president nationwide for 230 years. So the fact that the Democratic Party isn't challenging, I'm sorry that they're not. I'm somewhat ashamed that they're not. But that doesn't cut into the legitimacy of our claims that this last election was illegitimate.
Great. So the final question for today, and we're going to wrap up because we want to keep this brief. And tomorrow we're going to be on at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, and every day from now at 8 o'clock. The question is, given all that you have just said, then what's the likelihood? What's the possibility of actually getting a new election from your perspective, from a legal, practical perspective?
Okay. Well, there are kind of two ways of answering your question. One is probabilities, and I can't tell you what probabilities are. The odds are things that are figured in Vegas. They're not things that are figured for courtrooms. As far as the legal justification for our case, we have legal justification for asking that the sitting president be removed, because the allegations in our petition are that through treason, he was able to obtain illegally the office of President of the United States. We're asking two things. One, that a special master be appointed so that we can have a truly independent investigation. And everybody concedes that the Russians interfered. So the second part is, if the the special master determines that the interference resulted in affected outcomes of the election, then we should have the elections voided and move from there.
I'm sorry, we just got two more questions that came in. Someone's asking, why not just let Robert Mueller's investigation take its course? There's already an investigation going on, so why are you calling for yet an additional investigation?
Because Robert Mueller is special counsel. The statute that establishes the office of special counsel places that office in the executive branch. The only person that can fire Robert Mueller would be the Attorney General, except Attorney General Sessions has recused himself for any matters related to Russia. So Rod Rosenstein is the Deputy Attorney General. Trump could fire Mr. Rosenstein if Mr. Rosenstein refuses to fire Robert Mueller, and then Trump could fire whoever is next in line. A similar thing happened in the Saturday Night Massacre with Watergate in 1973. As far as the legislative branch is concerned, Speaker Ryan has said a couple of times he doesn't want to pursue an investigation. Other members of the House seem not to want to pursue an investigation. It boils down to this: the Republican Party really doesn't want to investigate itself. And as the Democratic Party obtains a majority in either or both houses in 2018, which means 2 years of this administration, anything that they do to investigate the 2016 election is going to be disputed as being political. So the judicial branch, James Madison wrote in Federalist Paper 43, is the best place to conduct such an independent investigation. Mueller's part of the executive branch. I don't doubt his good intentions in investigation, but he can be fired and then we go back to square one.
Okay, so in follow-up to that, is his investigation a waste of time? What happens to all that evidence that he collected?
Presumably, that evidence could be handed over, or if the special master is named, if the evidence isn't just handed over, the special master could order it handed over.
Okay, and the final question this morning, and I apologize, we'll take the rest of the questions tomorrow, is how long, if in fact the Supreme Court does order an investigation, are we talking weeks, months, years? Could this thing just go on forever? And how do we keep it short and sweet and get what we're looking for?
Since a lot of things have been done by special counsel Robert Mueller, presumably there would be a lot of ground that could be covered very quickly. I would say, given the gravity of this situation and a very simple determination, was it stolen by the Russians? Look at what happened in Kenya. Their elections were at the beginning of August. I think it was August 30th that the Chief Justice said, no, these are voided. These elections are not valid. And it wasn't even that they had to determine that there was an effect on the outcome of the election. The Supreme Court in Kenya determined that their election system had been compromised. And so it can be weeks. There's no precedent. So it can be weeks.
So you're saying that this could be the shortest, fastest, most efficient way to solving the problem, even maybe perhaps faster than impeachment? Is that a valid statement?
Certainly faster than impeachment.
Okay. And finally, we're going to say goodbye, but any hints as to what you're going to be writing about tomorrow?
Not right offhand. I kind of wait to see what the events are on a given day, and things have been happening so fast, especially since this past November. Each day presents new information that affects how I'm going to view the case and the topics that I want to address.
Well, we really do appreciate your time and energy and all you're putting into this case. You're fighting evil. You're very brave and a brilliant attorney. And again, we're lucky to have you. Thank you very much, Mark Small.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Take care.